Hi there, and welcome to today's vlog. Last Sunday was a day both of sadness but also of celebration. The reason was that I and Sue and my four sisters and husbands travelled back to a little village in East Yorkshire called Caingham. That was where I was born and grew up. And the reason we travelled back there on that particular Sunday was that it was the closing service for the Methodist Church in Caingham. And so there was a lot of sadness that things had come to such a state that the people who were still part of that church community felt that they could no longer sustain the church and the building. Anyway, let me go back to the early 1950s. My mum and dad, Len and Madge Clark, and their four little girls, Jean, Mary, Christine and Jenny, moved to Caingham. My dad became the sub-postmaster. They lived in a building which housed the post office and a little kind of corner shop, very small, but it served the village, which was very small in those days. A few years later, I came along, and so I was brought up in that village. I loved being part of the village, and I loved being part of that Methodist church. It was there at the age of 5 that after a particular service, I don't know whether it's something that was said by the preacher or something that was said in Sunday school, but I knelt down on the stairs at home and invited Jesus into my life. I gave my life to him. So that was the most significant moment in my life in many ways, and thus begun a journey of that life of following Jesus. I was loved and nurtured and cared for within that church community. And the service on Sunday, although there was a sadness about it, was a time where people could share testimony and story of how they'd been influenced within the life of that Methodist church over the years. My brother-in-law, Jeff, shared how he came to faith as a teenager when he was challenged on a particular Good Friday in a service at church. One of my sisters, Mary, spoke of when she became a follower of Jesus through a club that was run at the church called Sunshine Corner. So there's some great memories, some wonderful people who nurtured us, encouraged us, helped us, and of course, in due course, I became a preacher, a lay preacher, and then a Methodist minister. So I traced my spiritual foundations in many ways back to that church community. I was taught to love the Bible. This is the Bible that I was given in 1966 when I was 10 years old by the Sunday school of that church. And although it's the old King James Version, I don't read this particular translation all that often. I still hold on to it as a treasured memory. And they taught me in that church about Jesus, about the love of God, about his call on our lives. So much of significance in terms of my spiritual journey happened there. Another guy, a friend of ours called John, shared how through that church he answered God's call to be an evangelist. So many people have been influenced for Jesus in a positive way through that church. Many have gone to separate places and been proclaimers of the gospel through their lives and their words in many different ways. So that was a great opportunity, in spite of the sadness, to celebrate all that God has done through that church community there in Caingham. And when I had my opportunity to share it, I finished by showing people a postcard that I'd come across some years ago at an antiques fair. There it is. It's and when I saw that postcard, I thought that looks pretty familiar. And when I read on the back, I was so surprised. It says Caingham New Chapel. This is taken from a pencil sketch of the architect. The church building looks very different now, but that was the original sketch, and I think it was built, this version of the building, in the early 1900s, so over 100 years ago. And I asked, what was the vision of those people of the church in those days? What was the vision that God had given to them that caused them to build this new church building? And then I went on to ask, has that vision been fulfilled over the years through those ensuing 100 and more years? And I hope and pray that much of what they hoped for and prayed for has come to pass, and lives have been changed, and people have met with Jesus. But I also asked, what's the vision for the future? Because it is such a sad thing that church, which is quite a nice church, it's a lovely worship area, there's so much going for it, that they just run out of people to maintain it and move things forward. But the good news is, the positive thing is, that although that building is closed now, a group are meeting in the local village hall, and maybe that's a seed of a new growth, a new beginning. So I asked, what is God's vision for the future? And I hope and pray that there will be something good coming out of what has happened. Jesus said, unless a seed falls into the ground and dies, the fruit won't come. The death has to come before the fruit. And so maybe that's what's happening in that village in Cainham. So a sad day, but a day of great celebration for all that God has done. And we pray for all that God is going to do through his people in the future. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening today.